Ontario Premier Doug Ford says that he remembers things differently, but after Prime Minister Mark Carney reportedly asked him to pull his $75 million taxpayer-funded ad aimed at shaping U.S. opinion during the trade war, you have to wonder, is Ford really misremembering or just feigning ignorance to dodge accountability? Let's dig in. On the backs of Ontario taxpayers, Premier Doug Ford spent $75 million to run what I'm calling a propaganda ad campaign in the United States. It was meant to sway American public opinion on tariffs. That's money that could have gone to things like healthcare or housing, but instead went to a public relations stunt south of the border. And when Ford was called out for it after Prime Minister Mark Carney says he asked him to take down the ad, he brushed it off, saying he has a different recollection of the events.
Did you inform Mr. Ford that this is something that you did not want to go forward with?
Yes.
Had a different recollection.
Does that sound familiar to you? Back in 2018, then Prime Minister Justin Trudeau faced groping allegations and also dodged accountability by saying he and the accuser remembered it differently.
That the same interactions could be experienced very differently from one person to the next.
Now Ford is borrowing from the same playbook, proving once again he's just liberal light in a blue tie. Even Donald Trump called Ford's American ad false, saying Ronald Reagan loved tariffs.
It was a false commercial. It was the exact opposite. Ronald Reagan loved tariffs.
Well, he's not wrong, because when you actually go back to Reagan's original 1987 speech, the one Ford's team selectively clipped and edited, you'll notice something Ford's taxpayer-funded commercial conveniently left on the cutting room floor.
Now, imposing such tariffs or trade barriers and restrictions of any kind are steps that I am loath to take, and in a moment I'll mention the sound economic reasons for this, that over the long run such trade barriers hurt every American worker and consumer. But the Japanese semiconductors were a special case. We had clear evidence that Japanese companies were engaging in unfair trade practices that violated an agreement between Japan and the United States. We expect our trading partners to live up to their agreements. As I've often said, our commitment to free trade is also a commitment to fair trade. But in imposing these tariffs, we were just trying to deal with a particular problem, not begin a trade war. So next week, I'll be giving Prime Minister Nakasone this same message. We want to continue to work cooperatively on trade problems and want very much to lift these trade restrictions as soon as evidence permits. We want to do this because we feel both Japan and the United States have an obligation to promote the prosperity and economic development that only free trade can bring. Now, that message of free trade is one I conveyed to Canada's leaders a few weeks ago, and it was warmly received there. Indeed, throughout the world, there's a growing realization that the way to prosperity for all nations is rejecting protectionist legislation and promoting fair and free competition. We've taken steps to stop unfair practices against American products, but we've still maintained our basic long-term commitment to free trade and economic growth. So, with my meeting with Prime Minister Nakasone and the Venice Economic Summit coming up, it's terribly important not to restrict a president's options in such trade dealings with foreign governments. Unfortunately, some in the Congress are trying to do exactly that. I'll keep you informed on this dangerous legislation because it's just another form of protectionism, and I may need your help to stop it. Remember, America's jobs and growth are at stake. Until next week, thanks for listening and God bless you.
Ford's so-called patriotic message was built on distortion. Even Prime Minister Carney, who had his fair share of blunders lately, admitted that the ad was a mistake, saying it's not something he would have done.
It's not something I would have done, which is to put in place put in place that advertisement, and so I apologize to him.
Naturally, Ford doubled down, saying that he would never have apologized like Carney did.
I'll tell you what I would do. I'd never apologize to Donald Trump.
Is it any wonder that most Ontarians think that the province is heading in the wrong direction? Housing is unaffordable, healthcare is collapsing, and instead of focusing on any of this, Ford's busy playing diplomat and burning millions trying to sway American voters. Who made him the foreign affairs minister? Now remember, Trump's tariffs on Canada weren't random. They came after he declared the flow of fentanyl and illegal drugs a national emergency. In February, the White House released a fact sheet explaining that until this crisis was alleviated, Trump would impose 25% tariffs on imports from Canada and Mexico and 10% on China, with slightly lower rates on Canadian energy exports. Just 11 days later, Trudeau appointed Kevin Boisseau as Canada's so-called fentanyl czar. And after disappearing for nearly 8 months, Boisseau recently resurfaced, admitting the problem is bigger than he ever anticipated. So obviously the crisis isn't alleviated. And yet Ford and Carney are acting shocked that Trump is following through on his promises. Look, I get it. We're not used to politicians who actually keep their word. At least Ford and Carney obviously aren't. Say what you want about Trump, but at least he's done what he said he would. And that's more than what we can say for the weak leadership here at home. We knew this was coming, and we could have taken action and decisive steps to prevent it, or perhaps just alleviate it. But instead, we got politicians puffing their chests, wasting your money on propaganda, and pretending that perception equals policy. It's the same political theater they mastered during COVID, only now it's costing Canadians even more. So when Ford spends our money trying to spin American policy, even after being told to stop, it's not leadership. It's basically interference. And it's a reminder that for politicians like Ford and Trudeau before him, when the truth doesn't fit their narrative, they just remember it differently. For Rebel News, I'm Tamara Ugolini. If you want the real story, not the government's taxpayer-funded spin, head on over to rebelnewsplus.com and subscribe to our exclusive content where we don't remember it differently, we remember it accurately. That's rebelnewsplus.com.